Church family, I want to continue the conversation we started last week about disparity and division, equality and unity. The situation is escalating, and now with the rioting and looting, there is collateral damage and unintended consequences, and our church needs to speak up. Life is precious, all life of every color. We are not okay with George Floyd's death. We are not okay with innocent police officers being shot while protecting lives during riots. People are hurting, and injustice is never okay. Isaiah speaks to God's love for justice. If you feel it rising in you, that's good. It's biblical. If you see or hear something that's not okay, the taking of innocent lives, the stealing of what's not ours, the speaking of unkind words, it grieves the Spirit, and it should grieve us too. So what do we do? Our goal isn't to be political, it's to be spiritual. There's fear around this conversation. Are we saying the right things? Are we saying them at the right time? Are we saying them in the right ways? Probably not always. But I don't want fear to stop us. We won't be silent. The church can step in. The church does have a role, and the church should always love. I don't want to add noise to this conversation. I want to lead us towards personal transformation. Remember my first week with you, Palm Sunday? We talked about the biblical principles of taking thoughts captive, renewing our thinking, setting our minds on things above. What we're longing for is really systemic change. The injustice is painfully obvious and evil, but transformation, even universal transformation, starts with individual hearts. So I want to talk about our hearts and what we can practically do. When I feel God prompting me to engage in something and I don't know what to do next, I ask myself, what do I have in my hand? How can I share it? Maybe you have a case of water and you want to share it with those who are peacefully protesting in our city. Maybe you have some extra money and you can give towards the felt needs of our neighbor. Think about how you can bring God's peace into the city. What do you have and how can you share it? It might be a thing, it might be time, it might be one of your giftings, but how has God already equipped you to serve in this particular season? What I know for sure is the kingdom advances when we're on our knees. I encourage you to pray either alone or join a prayer group. This week I met with one of our prayer groups here from the church, and I was tremendously blessed by it. We've created a prayer guide for you to use. I'm a mom, and I'm talking to my family about this, and their questions are complicated. Their questions are hard, but I want them to hear the truth from their dad and I. I want them to remember that we were willing to have conversations of substance, even when we didn't have all the answers. I encourage you to talk to your children about what's happening. They are our next generation of kingdom advancers and world changers. Vineyard Kids has gathered some resources for your benefit. Yesterday was Blackout Tuesday, and I personally took the time to fast and pray. It was supposed to be a day of listening. There's something about fasting that moves the hand of God. I encourage you to sacrifice in this practical way and watch how God uses it to transform your heart. When we know better, we do better. In the conversation I had with Michael Sickles that we aired over the weekend, he and I talked about being a student, reading and watching and listening and always taking the posture there's more to understand than we do now. Listen to the stories of others, their fears and their hopes. I've been personally trying to be the initiator and ask questions, even if I'm unsure. What follows that step of faith grows me and blesses me. Lastly, I encourage you to take a prayer walk. Walk with a purpose. God models that in the scriptures for us. Pick your neighborhood, your local high school, your neighborhood police precinct, wherever it is that the Lord leads you. Walk and ask Him to move His hand. Vineyard, we are known for being outward focused, for seeing ways we can practically serve. Feel commissioned in this season to do just that. While God is working and moving and changing things on the grand scale, be a part of His mission by doing small things with extraordinary love. We know what will happen. It will change the world. I want to finish with these words out of Isaiah. They've been meaningful to me for a long time. Hear these words and ask Him how they could penetrate our hearts. Is this not the kind of fasting I have chosen? To loose the chains of injustice and untie the cords of the yoke, to set the oppressed free and break every yoke? Is it not to share your food with the hungry and to provide the poor wanderer with shelter? And when you see the naked, to clothe them and not turn away from your own flesh and blood? Then guess what happens? Then your light will break forth like the dawn, and your healing will quickly appear. Then your righteousness will go before you, and the glory of the Lord will be your rear guard. Then you will call out, and the Lord will answer. You will cry for help, and He will say, here I am. He is here with us. Cry out to Him for help. Be about His business. And let's watch how the Lord will use us and this body in the middle of this story.